How DL you delicious people? How do you delicious people? I'm here today to review Black Panther. Black Panther. I think especially after the What If episode, it just made me go like, man, I haven't freaking reviewed this yet. Why haven't I? Because I reviewed all the other stuff. Might as well review this. It just continued to get me really jazzed to want to watch this, and I was just so I was so happy that I did. Like, it feels like this movie, the more times that you watch it, like, it kind of just hits better. Plus, I honestly needed time for, like, the Wakanda ends, if that's the correct word, uh, and, like, Black Panther to eventually get dipped more into the MCU kind of facet of things. Like, if I were to watch this movie right out of theater and give my thoughts about this movie, I probably would have said that they had to, like, rely on a lot of action sequences. There's a lot of action sequences in this movie. And really, I would just say it's like, okay, like, I don't think that I get a good enough kind of villain side of things, but like, even though we kind of set up Claw in Age of Ultron, like, it just kind of feels like Killmonger is just a person out of nowhere. But that would have been my original thought. Looking at this now, I'm just like, you know what? Like, there's something so good about this movie. So good. Like, I guess I just needed, like, the heart grows fonder after, like, watching a movie, especially this one, because, like, I kind of drastically see this movie differently, where it's just like, man, is this such, like, a amazing piece. And uh like, the only probably reason that I wouldn't, like, hold this very high, like, there's some kind of Marvel movies that I would just say, like, uh are higher, just because, like, really, this is just an origin movie. That's, like, the only, like, problem that I would have with this movie. It's like, it's an origin movie, so it just kind of has to set a lot of things up. So, like, I would still, of course, say, like, I love, like, uh, Captain America: The Winter Soldier, or like, probably that would be my biggest one. Like, I don't even hold much into Iron Man, even though, God, Iron Man is such a fun movie. Uh, like, I would probably have to say it would probably have to go, like, Captain America: Winter Soldier, maybe a tie between Black Panther and Iron Man. Just because, God, like, freaking, like, yeah, like, Tony Stark, funniest character freaking in the MCU, but, like, there's also just something um, about the visuals of this movie. Like, everything had to be done from scratch. That's the best thing about, like, people could say it's like, oh no, it was taken off of comic books and it was easily adapted and whatever, like, but it also seemed like there's a lot of stuff that they had to, uh like, reinvent for this movie, like, and that's the thing that I liked. Like, they had to come up with the live action equivalent of Wakanda. They had to come up with a whole world, basically, for these characters to exist, and that's the thing that I love about this movie the most. Is it's just attention to detail. It's massive Black Panther freaking statue, and how we're also kind of like, we have these little covert missions in this movie. Excuse me. Also, and so, like, it's like a spy movie, but also a superhero film. Like, there's a combination of that, and but yeah, like, it also gives me kind of a familiar territory, if people have ever seen the Billy Zane movie, The Phantom, it kind of like it's kind of a way freaking like a billion times better version of that movie, but like it kind of just makes me like remember that film and just say like, yeah, that was a goofy movie, but uh like there was something about it that just made me think of like The Phantom while I was watching it. uh with the exclusion of Black Panther being like 100 times better than that. But anyways, so I think it's that coveted time to just go into spoilers. Uh, People like have heard this song and dance for as long as time, but like, and plus also like Marvel movies, it's really hard to do a review on. But like Captain America: The First Avenger, like did surprisingly well. Uh, but yeah, like really, I'm so curious what they're gonna do for the Wakanda Forever show, or well, I'm not quite sure what the title was. But man, like if you haven't seen uh, Falcon and Winter Soldier, like that of course does have some Wakanda pieces in there. Check that out. Uh, like I'm very interested to see what is to come off of that. I can't wait for the Wakanda show to come out. Um, Man, am I going to be like? I hope we. I hope that is like. I would hope that that is a transition to like a big, massive movie. Uh, like, because I don't want them to just be like, oh, like here's what we're gonna do for Wakanda now. Like, no, like you can just kind of like you can just put a big event in there, but then eventually just like have people kind of deal with it, or so I don't know. Uh, it'll be interesting to see what they do with that show. But anyways, let's go into spoilers. Let's go break this thing down. Uh, Very like I would call this like a really great movie. Like especially after that What If episode, just like coming back here, just sitting down and really like seeing these really fun moments again with Everett Ross, because I also recently saw like technically I recently saw Civil War 2, so it was kind of like getting the kind of closure moment of that. It'll be interesting to eventually get because I'm gonna try to watch all the other Marvel movies. Like I think I want to wait, even though I shouldn't, because Avengers Endgame is a big movie. I want to wait until I at least like kind of feel like I've covered most of the MCU, which is going to be a hard row to bow to hoe. Plus, we also have a new Spider-Man movie coming out soon, which is coming out in December. So more than likely, I'm going to have to start cranking out Homecoming and rewatch Far From Home to eventually get that out. So future eventually we'll get those movies. So let's just go into that double five. Let's go into spoiler time. Let's go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time I'm going to spoil this movie. So very beginning of this is to have this little like this little sand play out of this movie where young T'Challa is telling his father, like, "Hey, father, tell me a story." So, uh, King, King Chaka is to kind of tell his son about this story about there were five uh, uh, Jabari tribes that were kind of fighting uh, and battling it out. All of a sudden, we have one person, one soldier, who ended up ingesting this heart shaped herb, which he found via this like Panther, I guess, that was to tell him where this was, I guess, weirdly. And so all of a sudden, this guy who had gotten the ability of the Black Panther, all of a sudden, like, basically just forced all of these people to unite and have him be king amongst them, because he was just to be far too powerful for any of these people to just like, no, like, we're not gonna mess with that guy. So transition us to 1992 and transitioning us to an apartment complex where we have a guy named Jobu who is to go and eventually have Zuri go to this door to see that there seems to be some Wakandans at this door. Jobu is to tell this kid to open the door because they aren't gonna knock again. The Wakandans enter, and then of course we have King T'Chaka, as a much younger man, is to hug his brother, and what eventually ends up happening is Jobu is to be told by King T'Chaka that that he believes that Crane is working with Jobu. That this guy had been able to escape with Wakanda with quite a bit of resources, and assumes that it was actually an inside job. And so King T'Chaka is just looking at Jobu and it's like, hey, I think you are the one who helped this guy out. Because we eventually find out that Zuri was also to be a spy under Jobu. And all of a sudden we end up finding out that this kind of guy that's just kind of in the background, all of a sudden is to be a Wakanda member himself. So what ends up forcibly happening is that in flashback form, when Zuri is to finally tell T'Challa this story, Jobu is to put a gun to King T'Chaka because Jobu knows he's going to die. So Jobu is to put a gun to his own brother, forcing King T'Chaka to stab his own brother in the heart with his claws to kill him, sadly. And so both Zuri and King T'Chaka kept up this lie to save Jobu from getting out that he had worked with Crane or Claw, and like they basically had to leave Eric, who is Killmonger, so that way again they wouldn't have had to be forced to come back with Jobu back to Wakanda to tell everybody what had happened, to keep this secret that Jobu was to almost kill his own brother or Zuri, who is going to be Forrest Whitaker's character in this movie. So, and supposedly, Claw is to be this black market arms dealer, which, of course, we end up understanding reasonably in reasonably in Age of Ultron, but like I guess we just kind of have to reset up this character. Uh, but anyways, so uh, eventually, what we have happen next, after this whole flashback is to play out, uh, T'Challa is to go and have to try and get uh, Nakia, who is a girl that he wants to be at his coronation for becoming the Black Panther. So he has to go to get her because she's in some secret mission where she's undercover. And so Okoye and T'Challa are on this ship making their way to this mission. And so Okoye tells T'Challa, like, hey, don't freeze. And he's like, I never freeze. like, uh, so T'Challa gets dropped down and is to make his way through this forest. I'm like, this is a really cool way to like open this movie, where you have him in the forest in the darkness, and all of a sudden you just see these like flashlights just going around, and all of a sudden you see like Black Panther with these flashlights. And so of course, like, Black Panther of course just kind of tears through all these guys, uh releases all these women that are in this truck. And then, of course, T'Challa is to see Nakia. And, of course, he does freeze. So Okoye goes and takes down some of the men. And then collects Nakia, because T'Challa is to tell Nakia, it's like, hey, like, my father is dead. Like, I need you at the coronation of me becoming Black Panther. And Nakia's like, okay, like, all right, like, the mission's over anyways. Okoye is telling all the girls, like, hey, tell no one that this has ever happened. And so, that leads to T'Challa coming home, and of course, Suri is there with her just whatever kind of clothes on. Like, she never wears formal clothes. She doesn't care. Like, there's this one spot in this movie where she complains about this corset and tries to get this whole coronation over because she's like, God, this corset, like, freaking sucks. Can we get this over with? Come on, everybody. This is a waste of time. So T'Challa is to be met by his mother and Amanda. So this just leads us to kind of having these like nice family moments and stuff like that. So we get to the coronation. Zuri is to implement some makeup that is to go on T'Challa's face. We get this ceremony going. Suri is to complain about her corset. All the other tribal members are to mention that none of them are going to challenge T'Challa in combat for the crown. All of a sudden, we have M'Baku and his people, and so of course M'Baku is to mention how T'Challa, like, how can T'Challa protect a kingdom when he can't even protect his own father? And M'Baku is also kind of like throwing some shade to Shuri as well, just kind of complaining about like her like technical prowess and whatever. So T'Challa, of course, is just like, I accept your challenge. So now we have like this really cool spot where T'Challa is to get stabbed, but like we have like eventually T'Challa that is eventually doing this like submission maneuver like right on the edge of this like waterfall, and T'Challa is now putting M'Baku in this mission. Like that's the only part that really matters. And T'Challa is telling M'Baku, like, your people need you. Like, don't. I'm doing this in the T'Challa accent. I can't help it. It's freaking T'Challa. It's just an amazing accent. Hopefully, no one hates it. Like, I just love freaking, like, I love freaking T'Challa's accent. It's great. Uh, T'Challa is telling Baku that your people need you, submit, and of course M'Baku does that, and so M'Baku's people goes and takes him. Uh, like I'm sure, like M'Baku's like tribe actually has a name, and as well as any number of all these other people, and all these other tribes have their own specific names. But I'm not going to go into heavily specifics about every piece of this movie. I know I've done that in the past, but like, uh, anyways, so. Uh, Eventually this leads us to have Black Panther, of course, being Black Panther. He's like no one else could challenge him and whatever. So that eventually leads T'Challa to going into this thing called the ancestral plane, where he is to basically be put like this red sand over his body and is to eventually kind of just sleep and to be met with his father, where like they're talking things out. How like T'Challa is to mention that he's not ready, and Chaka is like, "How are you not ready? Like, did I not train you since birth to take this crown? Like, how are you not ready?" And T'Challa's like, well, I don't think I'm ready to rule a kingdom without you in it, kind of thing. So T'Chaka is just like, well, like, if I haven't trained you to eventually be ready for my death, then that's like my greatest failure, my greatest mistake. I'm paraphrasing here, so it might not be exactly like the words in the movie, but like it's gonna have to be close enough. So like T'Challa is just kind of talking things out with his father. Just a like a great things of dialogue that are happening here, because like T'Challa, I think in the back of his mind is going to be like, well, what would have my father have done? Like, would my dad do the exact same thing? Uh, as I'm, and everyone else is gonna second guess him too. Everyone is like, well, if his father was still alive, I'm sure that, like, that's like, look at Bruce Wayne. Like Bruce Wayne, like, uh, even when Thomas Wayne's family were dead, like there was a lot of people like who were in Wayne Enterprises. I was like, I don't think that's what Thomas Wayne would have wanted, and so like really, I think for Wakanda and T'Challa, like we're gonna have a lot of people that are just like, well, I don't think that would have. That's what would have T'Chaka would have wanted. I'm like, T'Chaka is sadly dead. We need to move on with T'Challa. Uh, so transition us uh, to have Eric, who is Killmonger, going into this London museum, and what eventually ends up happening is Eric is to go through all these pieces and have this museum curator woman going and telling him that all of this stuff is to be from Berlin. And he's like, oh, really? That's from Berlin? That's from Berlin? Wow, that's great. Yeah, like all this stuff is from Berlin, I'm sure. But Eric is like, no, it's not. Like this is a Wakanda piece, that's a Wakanda piece. These all things were all taken from Berlin's people, but originally these were all Wakanda pieces. And so then Eric is just like, and then I'm gonna like take all of this from you, like just don't you worry about it. And this museum woman is just like, well, like these aren't something for you to bargain with. Like no matter what kind of money you have, like we're not going to sell these to you. And Eric is like, I don't mean anything about selling. Like by the way, like you should also probably have checked what you've been drinking all day long, lady. So all of a sudden, this museum woman all of a sudden drops, and Eric is like, "Hey, get a doctor in here." Like she's passed out. All of a sudden, we have this coffee barista who's like, "I'm going on break," and then she like walks away forever, to make her way back in here with eventually like Claw's men and everything. Like I think she might have been in the ambulance where they're in. But anyways, so these ambulance people are to come in. Claw is with his men, and so all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, this woman? All right." So all of a sudden these guys bust out their guns and they're like, "Pew pew pew pew, laser gun pew." No, it's regular silencer gun. I just like to do the pew pew because it's funny. Claw goes and tells one guy, "Hey, like I'll let you run out of here. Like I'll let you like scamper out. Go ahead, run." So all of a sudden this guy runs and Claw is to shoot him in the back of the head. Eric is to just be like, "Okay, like why do that?" Claw was like, "Well, I don't want to make this look all professional like we did this. We had them all here in one group. I want to make it look like we were making mistakes." So evidently there is to be an axe that is to have like the very top of the axe, like the actual like sharp part, be the vibranium piece that that Claw is to want. And so they're just taking these pieces because they have certain parts of vibranium in them. Because Joe Boo, I guess, was to start getting some vibranium with Claw and sneaking parts of it out. But it seems that Eric was to find this museum that also had some vibranium pieces. So, eventually this leads us to having like Claw on Wakanda's radar, and now like they're gonna have to go and do a whole mission to try to take down Claw. So Maccabee or Wakabi. I'm gonna have to pause here for a second. So Kabi is to talk to T'Challa and mention how that he definitely wants Claw back into Wakanda so he can have justice being done to him for Wakabi's father being killed, or like a part of Wakabi's family being killed. So Wakabi is coming to T'Challa saying like, okay, so you're gonna kill this guy, or you're like gonna not let him slip away from your hands, because supposedly T'Challa had mentioned that T'Chaka's greatest failure was to let Claw slip through his hands, and so T'Challa is going to correct that. So that leads to have T'Challa, Okoye, and Nakia all travel to uh, Busan, South Korea. So that way they can go into this casino spot, and it's kind of fun because uh, Okoye is to have this wig and like just kind of flip it around every once in a while is what Nakia is to mention. Uh, oh yeah, let's also get to the new tech parts. So T'Challa is to go to Surrey and eventually get an updated like suit, like how in normal sequels where like the first like Black Panther suit is kind of bulky or kind of doesn't really fit all that well. uh where like they kind of show like the Civil War suit is kind of like a little bit bigger than the newest latest Black Panther suit. Surrey is to have this little necklace that is to uh, be on the Black Panther to have the whole suit being put together. So this necklace is on a mannequin, and so T'Challa is to supposedly hit this mannequin, and the mannequin goes flying, and Suri's like, "Don't hit it that hard." And so T'Challa is like, "Well, you just said, like, I know what I said, but like, don't, like, you're gonna make a mistake." Because Suri goes and tells T'Challa uh, to hit the Black Panther suit again in the same spot. And T'Challa notices that Suri's recording this. And T'Challa's like, "Why are you recording this?" And so Suri's like, "Oh, it's just for, like, record prosperity." She's coming up with some freaking reason, like, because it's going to be funny, because I'm going to see you flying, like, freaking 10 feet in the air. T'Challa kicks it yet again, goes freaking flying, and he's like, "Delete that video." So transition us to now South Korea, going into this casino, and T'Challa is to bump into a CIA agent named Everett Ross, and Everett Ross is to kind of be like going on to his like men. It's like, "Hey, the King of Wakanda is here right now. Like, we better get ready for something. Something's gonna happen here." Uh, so I want to try to get all this right. Yeah. So we have this big action sequence that is to come in uh, with Claw eventually having all his men just come through this casino, and like they all like are the only ones that can come in this casino with all their weapons. Like metal detectors are going off, no one cares. So what really just kind of kicks off things in this casino is Okoye is to get made, and that just forcibly leads Okoye to defend herself, and that basically just says like, okay, like everybody just start like beating all kinds of people. So Claw is to scramble out of here, and like there's this huge car chase where Suri is to get into this car, but she's not actually there. Like the car is to be controlled by her in a other location in her lab. So now like Black Panther is kind of he's on the top of this car, just kind of holding on to dear life, while Suri is to drive around crazily. Like we have these really cool spots, especially when T'Challa is to like dig his claws into the ground and have this car completely tip over, so that way he can turn the car perfectly. And so like these claw guys are just shoot with their weapons. Okoye is to eventually get on top of her car that she's in and go and take her spear, chuck it in front of the car to where the car flips over, and that's one car down. Claw is saying that it's a waste of time to put any bullets into any of these cars that these people are to have because all the cars are bulletproof. It's a waste of time. So eventually, this leads us to have had T'Challa be riddled with bullets, and so T'Challa jumps onto this semi truck to jump on this other car, and he uses his boost to flip this car and take that down, and then get back onto Suri's car. So Suri is telling him to just show off, and so, but eventually this all leads to Black Panther getting to Claw's car and almost wanting to take Claw down, but Okoye is to mention to T'Challa, like, hey, we're being watched. Like, there's a bunch of people with camera phones and all kinds of stuff, so the Black Panther can't kill Claw. This just leads to Claw getting arrested, being handcuffed to a chair, where he's singing, "Don't hurt me no more. What is love?" Freaking Everett Ross is coming in to try to get some information. T'Challa wants a word with Claw, but that's just not going to happen. Everett Ross is to try to just say, like, hey, T'Challa, like, it's even, like, you're just lucky that you can even be here right now. Like, we have this moment where, like, Everett is just kind of, like, poking at T'Challa, and Okoye is like, you know what, if he ever touches you again, like, I'm gonna make him, like, eat that desk over there. Like, I'm gonna make him freaking just, like, get hurt, or whatever. So, T'Challa is trying to be nice, so, Everett goes in there, does this whole interrogation, and Killmonger comes in, crashing through a wall, grabbing Claw, making their way out of there, and so that transitions us to having Killmonger wanting to head to Wakanda while they're getting on this plane, and so Killmonger is telling Claw that he wants to make it to Wakanda. And Claw is like, man, don't go to Wakanda. There's savages there. And Killmonger is like, well, technically so am I. I'm like, freaking, like, we're gonna... But here's the thing, though. So, while Killmonger is to be on, like, this, like, holding on to this car, T'Challa is to see the ring that supposedly only T'Challa had on this necklace of Killmonger, and so that leads T'Challa to want to question things. But wait a minute here, let's put a pin in that. So Killmonger is to be on this plane and just wipe everyone out. Claw grabs Killmonger's girlfriend, and Killmonger's like, dude, I don't need freaking anybody. Pow pow. Killmonger kills Claw and is to basically just put Claw's body in this little bag so that we can send this guy's body to Wakanda, so that way he has an ally with W'Kabi when eventually he makes it to Wakanda. So now T'Challa going back to Wakanda is asking Zuri about, hey, why does this guy have a ring that is to obviously be, like, the same as mine? Like, what's the story of this? Zuri is to say, like, well, the king told me not to tell anyone, and T'Challa's like, well, I'm your king now! Tell me! tell me this story. So basically, this story that I had said before is kind of what they say now. And Eric was to be Jobu's son. And so T'Challa is now asking Zuri, like, why didn't you bring him back? And Zuri was to say, well, like, it was to keep up the lie. We couldn't bring him back. So I was like, wow. Like, hey man, you could have had some more family. Could have had a Killmonger on your side, but like you decided like, nah, we're not even gonna try to just get this guy back on our side. Now he's just gonna come back because he has freaking vengeance on his mind to come after you people and wipe you all out. Just because like he has the willpower to do it more so than anyone else, even much more so than T'Challa. So it's like, all right, I love revenge stories. Like you can kind of really understand Killmonger's side of things, where like especially when watching this movie, it's just like now it's just like, wait a minute, I actually can sympathize with Killmonger. Like, I can actually just be like, man, like this guy had such a tough rap and he could have been sitting on a throne somewhere. Like, god dang, like I just realized that where it's just like, man, like I actually wanted Killmonger to just wipe everyone out. And like I shouldn't because like good should always prevail, but still, like I'm okay with like Killmonger coming in and just establishing dominance, just saying like freaking I'm gonna take what was rightfully mine and like challenge because I have the right to. So let me pause here for a second. Let me do a reset. Okay. So Killmonger makes his way to Wakanda, tossing to Wakabi the body of Claw and just like, hey man, like we're gonna be buddies. We're gonna be the best of friends right now. Cause Wakabi is just like, okay, who are you? And so now Killmonger has to just kind of like set everything up. So T'Challa is to sit on his throne and like now everybody is kind of up in arms about this whole like Killmonger thing. Everybody's hearing this story. So Killmonger is to make his way to T'Challa, just be like, hey man, I want your throne. Like your throne's looking really good right now. Like look at all you people just like sitting so comfy and cozy in your throne seats. Like I want that. I'm gonna take all that. Like I'm gonna take that from you. And so Eric is to just challenge for the throne. And they're just like, well, hey man, this is gonna take weeks to set this whole thing up. It's not that easy. And T'Challa is like, well, like I accept your challenge. Because, like, T'Challa is trying to reason with Killmonger, but it's like, nah, that time has passed. Like, no, like, you guys could have found me anytime, but no, you decided to just shut me out. So, guess what? I'm going to be opening some doors here pretty soon. So, Zuri is to reset up Black Panther with the makeup and war paint and getting ready. Putting the juices into T'Challa. So Killmonger is to take off his shirt to just kind of see all of these like dots for every single person that he's ever killed. So Killmonger is to mention that he killed people all over, like America, like at all kinds of these places. And now the next person is going to be like freaking T'Challa that he's going to kill. So this fight was pretty like exciting compared to like the M'Baku one, where it's just like, well, of course we're just gonna have like T'Challa just out muscle this guy, but like Killmonger just goes and is just like I don't want to say like he's just out muscling T'Challa, just like really just like outpowering him in every way. And so uh Killmonger is to almost take the killing blow to T'Challa. All of a sudden, Zuri comes into the fray and it's like, "Hey, kill me instead! Like, take me! Like, instead of T'Challa! Like, I was the one that was to not like bring you home with us, and so kill me." And so Killmonger's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna kill you and then T'Challa." It's like stab him, and then all of a sudden, like T'Challa is like grieving like the loss of his uncle, not really in the thought of battle, and so Killmonger just takes advantage of that, full advantage. Uh, so that just leads to have Killmonger just chucking T'Challa over this waterfall to just be like, dude, this guy's freaking toast. So Killmonger is to be, of course, the new Black Panther. Uh, Amanda and Suri and Nika are to all just be like, oh my god, like this guy is taking control. Like we need to all go and scramble to find M'Baku and give him the herb to hopefully have like M'Baku on our side to go after and take back Wakanda like to help us because like he's the only last person that we could think to have this guy try, like he's like our only last resort. So now Killmonger is to do the same ceremony of the ancestral plane as T'Challa did. Uh, Killmonger goes back to his home and to basically see his father have died all over again. So Killmonger is to have a talk with his father. His father is to mention to Killmonger, it's like, well, like what? No tears for your father? Killmonger is just like, hey man, people die. Like it's like people die all the time. So like there's this just interesting speech where uh like Killmonger's dad is just like talking about he wished that he could have taken his son to Wakanda so many years ago, but at least he left him with the Wakanda tattoo at least. And so like there's that moment there where we have like even Killmonger crying, even though like it's like, hey man, I'm not really crying for you. This is just a sad moment. Pushing on. So Killmonger, once he's to wake up, is to see that there's so many herbs that are to eventually be for the quite possible next Black Panther. And Killmonger wants all those things burnt because he's like, no, like there is not going to be another herb for anybody. Because Killmonger trusts no one. Plus, also, anybody could rise to come against him, probably kill him in his sleep. So, Killmonger is taking this woman and lifting her up and saying, like, you know what, when I tell you to do something, like, you do that. You do that. You do that. So, uh, all these herbs, these special herbs were all burnt to a crisp. Uh, so Killmonger and Wakabi are kind of like teaming up together, uh, and Okoye is telling Killmonger that because Killmonger just basically just wants an all-out war for Killmonger to have people get the arms that they need to go and just create a giant massive war. And Okoye is like, no, don't do this. Like this, like you shouldn't do this. And Wakabi is just like, well, hey, like there have been people that have been conquered, and there's people that are conquerors. Like I would much rather be a conqueror than be conquered. So, uh, so eventually this leads to the girls all going to M'Baku and like desperately asking for his help. Uh, Everett all of a sudden is to talk, and M'Baku is to do this like ooh 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 kind of noise because it's like Everett, you cannot say one word to me here because you are no one. And if he does say one word, feed him to his dogs or feed him to his men, whichever. Anyway, so these girls are to desperately plead with M'Baku, and M'Baku is just like, well, hey, you know what? Like, how about I be nice and tell you that, like, I over here just have, like, T'Challa, he's just, like, sitting on ice. And please don't move him, or he's going to die in seconds. Because Suri is to think that she can easily heal him, because Suri is to be able to, like, heal, like, anybody really quickly. Like, we had a moment where Everett was to heal from a bullet wound within a day because Everett was to get shot during that whole like uh, claw prison break thing, and so they ended up bringing him back to Wakanda to heal him because Everett saved the life of Nika, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that wrong, or I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly. So uh, that just leads to, of course, T'Challa coming back, becoming Black Panther again, wanting to set up that, like, hey, like, I never yielded, or uh, like this challenge is still on. T'Challa's not dead. So that's T'Challa's game, is that like he thinks that he can get back his people by basically just saying, well, the challenge isn't over. So T'Challa is to make his way back to Wakanda to try to challenge Killmonger again, but Killmonger, hey man, that challenge crap is over. Like I'm king now. Like sucks to be you. But we have a Okoye who's like just telling Killmonger that he's not fit to be king, and so Okoye and her people are trying to just take down Killmonger because technically he's not king because the king still exists. So this leads to this all-out battle. Uh, uh, even like even T'Challa's men are kind of even working against him. So T'Challa, before he left M'Baku's place, was to ask if like he could have their help to like win back Wakanda. And M'Baku was to say, it's like, dude, like I haven't seen a Black Panther in I don't know how freaking long, and like and you coming here, like, asking me for my help, like, Infinity War. I'll see what I can do in Infinity War, but but right now I'm just kind of Anyways, we also have another mission where Everett is to go and is to man this flying ship to try to take down Killmonger, getting these weapons of vibranium via these ships. So Everett is trying to take down all these ships, and eventually, while he's to do that, he is to kind of break away uh, from his mission to realize that someone is trying to get at him. But Everett just continues to try to do his mission anyways, and once he ends up like doing the mission and is successful with it, uh, like Everett is just kind of like everything is to work out for him because he's going to be in other things. So all this fighting, all this lead up, all this battle, uh, Everett, when healed from his wound, was to talk to Suri about like all of their setup that is to be at Wakanda, and so Everett is kind of like the only outsider that is seen. They have like massive amounts of vibranium because T'Challa was to supposedly say that Claw has like all the vibranium that Wakanda is to have. And so that's why T'Challa wanted to get to Claw. But eventually Claw was to tell Everett about how they have tons and tons of vibranium and how everything that Wakanda is telling you is a massive lie. And like they have so much technology that they're not going to tell you. Just ask him about it. Like basically my weapon was just a little mining trinket that I adjusted to become a weapon. So Everett is to talk to Suri, and so there is to be this train esh like setup that is to kind of bring up this vibranium, and that is to be eventually the big spot where T'Challa is to fight with Killmonger, because it's the only place where both T'Challa and Killmonger are going to be even when they fight, uh, because this is to just kind of take down both of their armors, so that way they have to kind of fight the normal way of things. So they're fighting it out, of course, within this like little subway rail station. So eventually, what happens? T'Challa, of course, stabs Killmonger, and then just takes him out to just go and see like the sunrise or the sunset. Yeah, the sunset. Because Killmonger was to say like, you know what, like this, like my father, I think my father had said that like this place is really beautiful. And Chalice to just say like, hey man, like we could probably heal you, and like you don't have to die, like and Killmonger is like, hey man, just bury me in the ocean, like like what are you gonna do, put me in chains forever? Like no, just bury me in the ocean. Killmonger takes out his blade, and then just falls to the ground to supposedly die. Cause here's my play. What if Killmonger didn't die at the end of Black Panther? So that way they can save him. We don't know. We could have like another Black Panther on our midst. like, because they kind of left it to just be like, maybe Killmonger didn't die. There could be a story there. I don't know. People may not like that answer. People may not like me to say that. Um, but just what if? What if Killmonger did not die at the end of Black Panther? What if there was? What if they just like were just like, you know what? We're just gonna bring him back anyways. That might be a thing that they do to just be like, no, uh, like we need to come up with some way to do this story. So that's just the way that the first Black Panther movies to fizzle out. Plus, also we had like a Okoye who basically had to take down her own husband, which is kind of fun. Uh, but yeah, but the end credit scene is to, of course, focus uh, on Winter Soldier and how like the Winter Soldier is in Wakanda, and like that'll lead to other things eventually somewhere down the road. But yeah, so uh hope I guess no, we actually have to cover some other stuff too. So T'Challa is to go back to the spot where his uncle was to die uh in uh so T'Challa is to have Suri and him go to California. Suri is just like, man, like if we were gonna go to California, I thought you were gonna take me like to Disneyland or something like. I thought you were gonna take me to somewhere cool, not this dump. So T'Challa is to say this is where Jobu had died. So what I'm gonna do is, or what I've already done is I've bought this building, I bought that building, I bought this building. Like we are basically going to have this place be the spot where we are going to trade our secrets with these people, and we're gonna give away all of our stuff. We're gonna finally just come out of the shadows, and we're gonna just bargain with people, and there's not going to be this war over vibranium anymore, or trying to have people like sneak through and get this vibranium. We're just gonna give it to everyone. We're just gonna haul it all out. So all of a sudden the ship is to appear right next to the basketball court, and all of a sudden all the kids are going wild about it. They're like, oh my god, like freaking like this is crazy. So Black Panther is to head to the like basically the UN, the United King or the United Nations, and like tell him that's like, hey man, I'm gonna give up all my secrets to all you guys. So like, hey, everybody's gonna get their fair share. So uh so yeah, like that's basically how this movie just ends and busts out for eventually them to finally just be like, hey, we're gonna like there will be no secrets anymore, because eventually like someone is going to take hold of Wakanda and do this anyways. So like T'Challa wanted to be like the first one to kind of bridge the gap, to have everybody know that hey, like we're a much grander place than you thought we were. Because like there was this news sequence at the very beginning of this movie, like telling like how like small or desolate Wakanda supposedly was, and like that's because they don't know any better. That's because they don't actually know. So, but yeah. So with that said, that's what really just ends this review. I'm gonna get out of here so I can call this a day. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody. Oh, and if there was any part that I forgot about, I apologize. A long movie, 2 hours worth, and plus I also am like covering like an hour. So yeah, I'm gonna get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.